and welcome to this episode of Redefining the Customer Journey, where we take a deep dive into how anyone from a small local business owner up to a corporate CEO can build a modern business that is flexible and able to quickly adapt and evolve. We've all seen businesses collapse because they were built on weak foundations, riddled with problems in their day-to-day, which are also unnecessarily complex to grow and scale. We want to help you build something that leverages your time and resources for maximum effectiveness without sacrificing your customer experience. I'm Paul Sokol, founder of BPro, best-selling author of the Infusionsoft cookbook, which contains over 80 CRM-based business recipes for automated follow-up. And I've been helping small to medium-sized businesses under 50 million with automation since 2008.
And I'm Bobby Prousseau, founder of LeadPass.com, which helps you set your business processes on autopilot to free up more time and sales using automated processes. And I've been in the automation space since 2016, primarily in the financial area. And in each episode, we are going to cover one specific CRM topic to explain what it is, why it's important, common problems, and the best solution we've seen throughout our experience. So for today's episode, we get to explain the planning and organization of a CRM or sales process in general.
Yeah, in general. And so, as we mentioned in the last episode, this episode and the previous one are a little more high level, a little more heady. And then the future ones, we're going to get way deep into the CRM weeds here. But we have to have this core foundation here. So we talked about product and services last time. So planning an organization, what is it? So I would say that planning is the discipline to make distinct the how. So there is a single source of truth that guides all your building and implementation.
So when we look at this at a fundamental level, whenever you go into something like a CRM or a sales process, you should always, go back one step and just kind of look at it from abroad and say, okay, listen, in order to get this, I want to start at this step and end here. So organization is the discipline to keep things easy to find and in order. And when we start the foundation like this, it's really easy to add pieces as we go, opposed to just start at the end and then realize, wow, we missed a whole bunch of different things that could have saved us a ton of time and made us a whole lot more money.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I would say that's a really good explanation of what is planning and discipline. And we even talked about that, not doing that in the last episode, that you can actually create future problems for your future self if you're not doing that. So why is this important? Why is it important to plan and organize? I would say that probably the number one reason why you need to do this is because it speeds up and it focuses your implementation and your build cycles. When you have a document or documents or whatever that the whole team is using, that's what they build. It's almost like building a house. There is one blueprint and everybody, all the teams that are involved are going off of that. And that speeds things up.
And the larger the team, the more planning and organization is needed, especially when you get into more complex sales processes. So if you have, let's say, a very simple sales process. So you want to sell a PDF for $7 on Facebook. It's going to have a dramatic difference on the sales planning and organization as it would if you were going to do a mortgage, because a mortgage would have 15 different steps, do approval processes. You got real estate agents, you got brokers involved, you got lawyers, you got the customers. Credit scores are affected depending on what time of the season it is. So when you're planning ahead, of what you want to sell, you need to really start to plan everything step by step and see, is it something that I can get away with only having 3 steps, or is it something that I need to go ahead and get 15 to 20 steps and map out each individual thing so that nothing falls through the cracks?
Absolutely. And yeah, the larger the team, the more important it is. Even if you're doing something like a funnel online, we were talking about a VSL before we hit record here. If we were doing a VSL as a video sales letter, right, which as the name lends, it is a video that is doing a selling for you, trying to get people to bust out their credit card or move ahead in the process, whatever that may be. And there can actually be multiple people involved in just getting that asset up and going. So you're going to have, somebody is going to be writing the script for it, which may not be the same person that's going to be recording the video, which may not be the same person that's editing the video, which may not be the same person that gets it onto the website so people can actually watch this video, right? So the larger the team, the more planning and organization is, I would say, required. to make sure that you're just not making problems for your future self or slowing down the speed of implementation. That's a huge takeaway there.
And then you also need the person who's going to actually be posting the Facebook ads or the Meta ads, and then you got to go through the Google. You got to talk to the person who's setting up all the pixels, the data tracking for you, who's taking in the conversions for who's calling into that actual VSL. So tons of stuff in there, Sokol, and you nailed it right on the head.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's probably one last thing of like why this is really important. When you're planning, when you're really clear about your planning in your organization, this makes it easier to understand both for the end consumer as well as the internal team. Because if the internal team isn't clear on exactly what's going on, whatever they build, that confusion is absolutely going to translate out to whatever the consumer's receiving, and it may create like a disjointed experience, which ultimately is going to impact the bottom line. Conversion rates are going to go down. You're going to be having higher cost per leads, all sorts of stuff. So planning an organization, I mean, that's why it's important. Just you need to do it. You can't build a house without a blueprint. You would never do that.
That's a great point. And like one of those main issues that you're talking about right now is like lack of clear roles and responsibilities. Because if someone doesn't know exactly what they're doing and maybe they leave a part out that they didn't know that they had to do, or they're adding a piece that is actually someone else's, and then you have redundancies in there that are causing additional issues throughout the process. Huge issues down the line. And oftentimes you'll miss huge chunks of data. So if someone thinks that they're supposed to be doing A and someone thinks that they're supposed to be doing C and no one understands that they're doing B, you can miss huge pieces of data along the way. So your reporting will be completely screwed up.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. So yeah, that's a huge common issue is that when you don't plan things, there is a lack of clear roles and responsibilities. You might have two or three people on the team that think their job is to write the emails, and now they're going to be like butting heads about it or whatnot, or even like I said, key things may just not even be figured out. We could say back to the video sales letter example, hey, we're going to do a VSL, cool, but nobody actually sits down to figure out like where's that going to be hosted, for example, where's the video, what server is that video going to live on. And also, in addition to key pieces to be missing, you'll also have the opposite side of that, where if you don't plan, you can end up with extra fluff and stuff that is not needed. And then this is getting back to what we were talking about earlier of like the need to have versus the nice to have. The stuff that you need it. And the stuff that's nice to have, maybe you don't do it on the initial build. Maybe you intentionally leave it out of the plan. Maybe that's a version 2 thing. Like get that out the door and let it go. Figure out, polish it up. And then a couple months later, maybe do the version 2 stuff.
Yeah, so like one of those things that a lot of people try to do is they try to polish this product and polish the product and polish the product the first time instead of putting out like an MVP product. So a minimum viable product. Once you get the minimum viable product out to market, you realize pretty quickly, are there holes in it? And then you can patch those holes and fix those holes up, whether like instead of wasting like 6 months trying to put a perfect product out, which could not even be a viable product to begin with. And the MVP, you could have done it in like 3 weeks, tossed it out there, tried it. Okay, how do we perform better at the second integration of it?
Yeah, 100%. And I want to highlight and emphasize the word viable. It has to be a viable product, which means you have to be explicitly clear on the problems that your target audience has, like the actual for real problems. And then your solution, your product or your service must solve those problems in the most elegant way you know to do. That is viable. And so a minimum viable product means it absolutely has to solve this thing. You got to get that sorted out. And I guess I just really wanted to emphasize that because you hear people talk about MVPs and whatnot, and they'll release something that's just straight up not viable. And that's like, that's a pain in the butt. Um, which that's another common issue with this without planning an organization is you'll have people that are promoting stuff, they're building stuff or even promoting stuff before it's viable or before it's ready, before you have the plan hardened. Now that's not to say you can't, build in public like people will say, but like if you know that you're going to have some service coming out and you want to go ahead and start promoting it. Okay, fine. You need to at least have that part planned out. Like if you want to build a wait list for this thing, cool. You do need to plan out that small little micro marketing journey. Otherwise, if you just start posting, hey, we have this thing, hey, we've got this thing, now you're creating a bunch of noise because people don't know what to do. They're going to be commenting and messaging you and emailing you and texting you, phoning you, and then now some poor person on your team, maybe even you, operationally behind the scenes, has to try and figure out how we're going to collate all that. Whereas if you said, okay, cool, here's how we're going to build a wait list. We're going to have just like a simple landing page, right? Now, as all that stuff comes in, you can triage it to the landing page, even if it's something like, cool, you fill out the landing page on somebody's behalf for them because they messaged you on Facebook or something. Hey, I want into this. Cool. What's your name and email? Cool. And you just centralize it into there. That's a huge issue that I see. And if you can't tell, my passion comes through because like I see that all the time and I hate it because they're promoting stuff and then they're setting this expectation that the actual thing has nothing to do with it. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. So like one of the solutions when you're talking about that cycle would be like, so you have to make your decisions quickly and then change slowly. So, okay, this is what I think that our main minimum viable product is. Let's get it up and running so that we can do it. And then we can slowly change it to better serve not only the customer, but our internal team so that we can better fulfill it. Mm-hmm. So right from the start, you have to plan the work. And then after you plan it, replan it and replan it and replan it, because there's going to be tweaks and there's always going to be adjustments that are needed along the entire route of the customer journey. And as the solution or the product changes over time to better serve your individuals.
Yes. So that is a really good solution. And you talked about the planning and the working. That's the best solution for it. Plan your work the plan. Plan version 1 and then build version 1. And unless there's like a real big serious thing on fire that you forgot, don't change it. So a great example that I have here is I got a client of mine. They're about to release a big membership site on ClickFunnels. They're a very celebrated author. They're going to have this awesome membership site, and they wanted to do live Q&A calls weekly. And the original plan was they were going to do the live Q&A calls like on Thursday mornings, right? That was the plan. We had that. We built all the automation. We wrote all the messaging. We set up the ClickFunnels membership for that. And then maybe about a week or so ago, they had, I guess, met with their advisory board, and they're like, all right, cool. We want to do 2 weekly calls, and we want this on Tuesday now. And so I went back to the plan. I had that documentation. I'm like, hey guys, for the past like 2 or 3 months, the plan is always we're going to do these live calls on Thursday. That's what's been built. Or do we need to change the timing of this, or can we stick to our original schedule? And at the end of the day, we did choose to move it from Thursday to Tuesday, so we had to make those changes. But like that's a great example of like make them quickly, change them slowly, and making sure things are documented. In any kind of a framework. That's another huge best solution I'd say. That's a big takeaway is whatever your planning looks like, make sure that it's documented in some framework. Just like an architect with a blueprint for a house, they've got their blueprint. Like that's the documentation, and then that's where conversations can come from. And that's where version 1 can be distinct from version 2, from version 3. All that kind of stuff.
So when we're talking about things like that too, and changing the plan, originally when we design a plan or you say, okay, hey, listen, I want to accomplish this, this, and this by this date, at the core fundamentals, we want to make the plan as easily understood as possible so that it's not a stretch understanding that, hey, listen, if I give this plan to one of the salespeople, or if I give this to one of the administrative staff, or if I give this to one of the founders, it has to be easy and clear enough to understand that if you laid it out in front of someone who's in grade school, that they understand the process. Maybe not all the little technical pieces that have to go along with each section of the plan, but overall, it should be very clear, concise, easy to understand, and like written in that 6th grade language. So there's no questions. Like if someone says VSL and they don't know what a virtual sales letter is, in the document it should say, This is a VSL. Here's the keyword. This is what we're trying to accomplish by this. Super simple, clear cut, easy to understand, nothing wild. You want to take that to the technical team and go like, okay, so we need a pixel here, we need this there, we need the HTML code there written. Perfect, no problem, and that should be planned out accordingly. But overall, it should be very easy to understand unless you want to dive deep into each of the technical aspects of each part of the plan.
Yeah, that's a huge takeaway. Making sure the plan is easily understood. I'd say like at least about 80%. Everybody involved in the project should be able to look at it and basically get most of what's going on. And then the specific fine details will fall into place as you're working the plan, right? Which working the plan is working the plan. There's a real common issue that I see a lot is that where people will set a hard deadline before the reality of it is considered, because they haven't planned it. So like a good example, I had a client, they wanted to do a 3-part summit where once a month they do a virtual summit. And I think it was like going to be on like the 4th Sunday of each month, right? And it was the beginning of the month. And they're like, yeah, we want to go ahead and go out and do this from nothing. And the reality of it was the time to produce the messaging for it, they literally only had a week before this thing needed to start getting promoted. And that deadline was set like by the founder, by the person at the top, because they didn't have the reality considered for it. And we worked the best that we could. We built the thing, but when it came to the actual messaging and the emails and the text being written, like that was absolutely going to miss the deadline because that scope hadn't been figured in. So I guess one big takeaway for that is that, and this is a good best solution, is planning also helps you wrangle in the visionaries into reality. So that way we're not saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and build an entire house in the next 2 days. Like straight up not happening. So like that's probably the key takeaway is like wrangling and keeping that customer experience front and center. And then that's what you're planning and what you're building. And that way you can avoid hard deadlines until you're actually ready to make an accurate hard deadline. So I think that's probably about it for this episode. We're basically at time, Bobby. Is there any final thoughts you want to leave with the audience?
I mean, we could go so far down this rabbit hole, Paul. But I think as a nice introductory, we're going to have additional videos on this topic in the future. But as a nice start to the general conversation, I just want to say thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment. Make sure you watch the next episode, and I believe the next episode is going to be on naming conventions. Super exciting, I know, but they save you a ton of time. And honestly, they are kind of exciting. So if you get them right.
Yes.
But make sure to subscribe now, and if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on the next episode or anything else in the series that myself and Paul are going to be doing. And if you want to learn more about the customer journey, Paul's offering a free How to Automate Like a Pro mini course. And if you want to get some free built customer journeys, I'm having a couple links below so that you can download them as a snapshot. And thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
See you next time, everybody.